Hi everyone and welcome. Father Lamb here, and it's Wednesday, and we had our first weekend together with our new Mass schedule. So I want to thank everybody for your patience. We went from 6 Masses in the 2 parishes down to 4 Masses, and a lot of adjustments and change a little bit difficult. So I want to just thank you for just your willingness to sort of walk through this together with a new time for Mass or a new place to go to Mass. So it's great to serve the people of Assumption, Blessed Virgin Mary, and to continue to serve the people at Queenship as well. So one day at a time, and we just got to trust God. That's really what it comes down to. We have to have faith that God does show up. No matter what Mass we go to, what church, God is there. He's with us. And certainly all of this brings up the fact that we need more vocations. That's the exact reason why we twin places, is because we simply don't have vocations. So we need to continue to pray for vocations. You can wonder about that. Why don't we have more vocations, and all the different reasons for that? Whatever it is, a breakdown of the family, we don't encourage vocations, people aren't turned on to the faith, what's happening with God? Sometimes you get mad at God. Why don't you send more vocations? Maybe He is calling people and we're just not listening, see? And so that whole mystery of trying to get more vocations, let's just make ourselves available to praying for what God wants. But I do think there is something to be said about the fact that God does call us. We all have a calling, and that we need to listen. And we don't always listen. Sometimes God comes to us mightily in great events, and sometimes God comes to us very gently. And if we're not listening, we're not going to hear His voice. There's a very famous passage, in fact, in the scriptures. I think it's in the book of Kings. It was part of our office of readings yesterday. That we read, anybody who does the office of readings for priests and religious. And I just like to share from the book of Kings about the Elijah the prophet, where he found God. There Elijah came to a cave where he took shelter. Then the Lord said, "Go outside and stand on the mountain before the Lord. The Lord will be passing by." A strong and heavy wind was rending the mountains and crushing rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind, there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, there was a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, there was a tiny whispering sound. When he heard this, Elijah hid his face in his cloak and went and stood at the entrance of the cave. God was in the tiny whispering sound. Now, if we believe that, how are we going to hear the tiny whispering sound? There's so much noise around us. And that's why it's so important for us to get quiet. And quiet itself isn't prayer, but quiet is sort of like the prerequisite. And we got to turn things off so that we can hear. And maybe this week we could be more aware of that, of just giving ourselves the quiet that we need, that we glamorize and glorify busyness in our culture. It's all about being busy. What do you do? What are you busy about? What do you do for a living? And as I've said many times before, we become human doings rather than human beings. We are children of God. We're sons and daughters of the Father. And He has a message for us. But it's not just that we're not listening. We can't hear it because there's so much other noise. So we need to turn the cell phones off and the TV and all the media for a while and just sit still and listen. And we just might hear, beyond the quiet, a tiny whispering sound. And God coming into our heart and motivating us to do something with our lives, that there is a purpose for our lives. And that's one of the beauties of Eucharistic adoration. And now we're doing that from 7 to 8 o'clock in the morning before Mass at both churches, Monday and Friday at Queenship, and Tuesday and Wednesday over BVM. We have adoration from 7 to 8 o'clock, and then we have 8 o'clock Holy Mass. Come on out a little bit early and just be with the Lord for an hour. It can just change your whole peace that's going on inside us, or lack of peace, because of the noise that we're kind of barraged with every day. The tiny whispering sound. So this week, let's keep it really simple. God's calling us to a deeper quiet, a deeper silence, in a world that glorifies noise and activity. We need that space to find out who we are and whose we are. We are God's children. What is God the Father saying to you? Can you hear that tiny whispering sound? God bless you.